Hi there, and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Rosa Coelho, health coach, trainer, and teacher. I'm also founder of the Simply Strong programs and community. Here, we cut through the noise to simplify health, personal growth, and lifestyle, helping you to thrive with ease, confidence, and vitality. Listen in because you never know when you may hear something that changes everything. Hello, beautiful friend. Hope you're ready. Hope you're ready for a really deep episode. And I truly mean that. This is an episode that I've already listened to a couple more times since recording, simply because I just needed to let it soak in. I had got so much value from it. And you can tell when I'm interviewing, I'm half reflecting and half reminding myself that I'm the one interviewing. It was such a profound episode, and I hope you find the same as well. It's no surprise that we go deep in this episode because the person I interviewed is Peggy Farah, and she is actually founder of Deeper Cravings, and Deeper Cravings is her Instagram account. Peggy is a friend from university, and we've recently reconnected through when I started to see her posts on Instagram, and they really started to help me personally on so many levels. Peggy is a psychotherapist, and she's a mom. She's a founder, like I said, of Deeper Cravings and also the Nourish Circle. In this episode, we talk about the difference between shame and guilt, a difference I didn't quite understand myself, and now I'm so grateful for the way she explained it. We talk about how the body is not a project, and this is an interesting one, why some people never apologize. But the true essence of the episode is really about shedding shame and finding your true self. Peggy has such a gift for working with women and also with couples. We don't get into couples in this episode, but that is one of her talents as well. And so I really hope that we can have her back for future episodes. In the meantime, make sure that you go over to Instagram and follow her on Deeper Cravings, as well as have a look at the show notes for further links to her Substack. Okay, friends, sit back and enjoy this episode. Oh my gosh, we're here. Hi, Peggy. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rosa. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm beyond excited. And even in the intro, I was saying how we're like old friends from a long time ago, and life has just taken us on these incredible paths. And when I started seeing what you were doing and the gifts that you were putting out there, I was like, oh my goodness, we need to reconnect, first of all. And second of all, I need to share you with the world and share with everyone what you are doing, because I just think it's remarkable. So thank you. I so appreciate your time.
Thank you, Rosa.
So tell us, tell us a little bit about who you are, the work that you're doing, and even for me, it's a little bit of a catch up in terms of what you're doing exactly with your work.
Yeah, well, maybe the best way to tell about my work is to tell a little bit of a story of a trajectory, because I feel like my work is where it is now because I followed an arc. So I work as a psychotherapist. That's the work I do. I have a practice where I see individuals and couples. But the beginning of that work, it was a second career for me. I started my career in nonprofit and healthcare management. I was at director level working in that job, but always knew I wanted to get back to more frontline work, working with people. So I trained to have this next career as a psychotherapist. I got a master's degree in spirituality and in psychotherapy. And during that process, I was also trying to heal and uncover and really shift and transform a 30-year battle I had had with my relationship with my body and with food. So from the time I was 8 years old, I had been dieting. I had had the secret obsession with weight loss and with how to shift my relationship with food. And during that period of time when I was studying, I knew that I wanted to do something different. I needed to find a different way. So during that process, as I was getting my master's degree, I birthed a body of work that I call Deeper Cravings, which is looking at healing one's relationship with food and with their body through really primarily self acceptance, through mindfulness, through connecting to their wholeness, through moving out of body shame. So I worked that body of work for many years. And also, I, at the same time, was working at private practice with couples and individuals. And during that time, and something we'll get into more later, I was having all of this emancipation in my relationship with my body, freedom in my relationship with food, totally moving to a place of self acceptance with my body. But I had these very huge struggles going on in my marriage. I had struggles with my mental health. I had all these aspects that were creating a lot of a pocket of my life that was feeling pretty shameful and dysfunctional when I was having this other aspect of my life that was feeling so transformed. So there was this split going on in me. And then most recently in the last 6 months, I've been moving into this place of what I would think of as radical wholeness, like needing to find a way to really release the shame that had built up in my life about my relationship with my partner, with things that had happened in my life around my mental health, and this long history with my body, so that I could get to the core of the truth of who I am. And what I found was that when women come together and share their stories from a place of wholeness without feeling like they have to hide aspects of themselves, moving out of the shame stories that we carry, something very powerful can happen. And they're the birthing of communities of women where we can come together and share it all, share the beauty and share the mess, and sit in the truth of all of that is, I find, where a lot of real wholeness and healing can happen. So, where my work has evolved to right now, where I am now in this arc, is while I still have my practice, my psychotherapy work, I'm really focusing on a body of work which is about bringing women together in community to accept themselves fully, whole hearted self acceptance, where they are able to integrate all the aspects of their history, where they're able to really live into the truth of who they are and reconcile the parts of their lives that have been hard to reconcile, whether that's relationships, whether that's mental health issues, or their relationship with their body, or how their body looks, or what they've succeeded in or not succeeded in. So, how do we reconcile all of that to a place of connecting with our wholeness?
Mhm. Oh my goodness, that's incredible. I it's interesting because you speak about community, and for so long I was like a one-to-one trainer, and then I started implementing this community aspect because I just feel women, we really need each other, and so I love that that has become part of your work. It's not just as like as an individual, obviously we have to do a lot of work with just ourselves, but to do that in community is quite unique.
And it can't just be any community though, because you can be in a community of women and feel really lonely and be
Mhm.
stuck in what I would call toxic comparison, where you're spending that whole time and you're all sitting in a place of trying to present this perfection and worried about judgment. And, so many of us are scanning like lighthouses for judgment all the time. How am I being perceived? Am I meeting the mark? So it can't just be any community. It has to be the cultivation of a community where we can really show up in a place of acceptance, where we can accept each other, where we can accept ourselves, and there's enough safety in the community to just get real with each other. And when we can tell our real stories, our real stories of power and empowerment, and our stories of messy and confusing, that's where that solidarity can happen. And it's so holding, like it holds us in
Yeah.
such a beautiful way to have community like that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you really spoke about that, and you're right, like, as women, we do that a lot, that comparison. There is that whole quote, the, "Comparison is the thief of joy," right? And it's
Mhm.
so true, and you do see that, and it creates such pain around that. You have recently started speaking a lot more openly about your stories. I've been reading it's in Substack, your journey, and just for those listening, like, if Peggy mentions different topics and things, we will have her back because I know
Mhm.
it's so sometimes you're listening, you're like, "Oh, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about that." But we'll I do hope that you'll come back to speak about it because you did touch on relationships and all the things.
Love to.
Can you talk a little bit more about opening up about your personal journey?
Yeah, well, it's super fresh, hot off the presses,
Mhm.
Rosa, because it's
Yeah.
really only this month that I have come public with two aspects of my history that I had really been guarding as shameful pieces. And even though in my personal life, friends and family knew about these aspects of myself, because I had had a public platform with Deeper Cravings, I had, a very public platform. And in fact, I'll tell this story because it's kind of an unusual story in that I was getting some success and some traction with my Deeper Cravings body of work. Women were wanting to know more about how to apply intuitive eating and mindfulness and self acceptance to heal their relationship with food. It wasn't about weight loss, it was about shifting that relationship so that we could be at home in our body, embrace our body, and see our body as our birthright and not tie our worth to our weight. So I was super passionate about speaking that message because I had really found that for myself and I wanted to share that really broadly. And so in that time, as I was getting a little traction, I had this very exciting moment where I had posted something on Twitter. And then a few days later, got a call from Harpo Studios that Oprah was coming to Seattle where I was living, and she was going to do an event at the arena there in front of 10,000 people. And she wanted to meet me on stage for a couple of minutes to ask me about my work.
Amazing.
So it was huge. It was
That's
like the
massive.
biggest. It was massive. I adored Oprah at the
Especially our
time.
generation. It's
Totally. I grew up with her. So that was like a dream come true to have that moment. And so I got there. I was on stage talking to 10,000 people about how their weight did not determine their worth and that they could be at home in their body and it was their birthright to be home in their body. And it felt so powerful in that moment to be able to say that to all of them. What I couldn't say and didn't say is that secretly, privately, in the background of my life, I was raising two little kids in a very, very painful marriage that had definitely its highs and lows, but the lows were really low. A lot of dysfunction in that marital place. So I spent many nights crying my eyes out and not knowing what to do and having these young kids and not sure what the impact was going to be to them. And I had all of that going on while I was working as a therapist and while I was speaking out
Mhm.
in public spaces about, how to be free and how to be at home. And meanwhile, it was a paradox because I was really not at all free in my marriage. And then that marital journey took its own art, it had its own trajectory over time. And about 4 years after that moment, we actually went into a separation because it had just got to its breaking point. But then my husband and I really courageously did a super big deep dive into learning, voraciously learning everything that we could about the masters, the relationship skills. Some of it I knew as my work as a psychotherapist, and a lot of it I had to learn from the client side because we're not taught about relationships ever. We don't get a curriculum in that. We have to
Okay.
what I mean, I don't mean therapists aren't, I mean
Yeah.
none of us. Like
No, you're right. Yeah.
the only way we learn about relationships is what we grew up watching, right? We
Yeah.
don't get relationship 101 in high school or in college or
No.
anywhere else. So unless we actively go study it, and I had the exposure a little bit as a therapist, there's
Yeah.
no way to get those skills. So, and they are skills that we have to learn. So, he and I did this big journey of coming back together and also did our own separate trauma work, which was huge. We both needed to uncover what was underneath the
Mhm.
dynamics that were making things so hard. And I'm happy to say we built beautiful foundation in our relationships
Wow.
for each other and for our kids. So now here we are 7 years after that point, and we're really thriving. And it's not only like we're out of the dysfunction, I'm really truly in the relationship of my dreams right now,
Oh.
and I'm
Oh my
so
gosh,
happy about
beautiful.
that. So even though the arc of that story has such a happy ending, I still felt like I couldn't tell that piece publicly because I had this veneer of, well, if I was giving people marital advice all along, I couldn't have this going on within me privately. So that story about my marital history is
Mhm.
very fresh for me to be willing to write about it, speak about it, and tell that full story. Simultaneously, the other piece related to my mental health is that days after that Oprah event, literally days, I had a severe psychiatric experience episode that had me hospitalized for a short bit of time. And that, in and of itself, as a psychotherapist, somebody who was giving diagnoses, somebody that was helping people with mental health, that was hugely identity rocking. I didn't
Mhm.
have a way to make sense of me having that experience and that connected to how I had always seen myself or how I had wanted to be seen. So again, that was something that I had purposely kept pretty guarded. And then it was only again recently when I told my marriage story. What happened was I wrote the article where I told my marriage story and I hit publish, and that
Yeah.
felt like a big deal. The irony is, I named that article Madness to Miracles.
Mm,
But what I didn't talk about in that article was the actual madness.
right.
And as soon as I hit publish and I felt the liberation of telling this part of my story,
Yeah.
I also had this mixed feeling of, but that's not the whole story. And
Mm,
meanwhile, I was still hiding. I was hiding this other piece, which was my mental health struggles. And that's when I recognized that shame, we talk about compassion being the thief of joy. Shame is the thief of wholeness. And
mm,
because I had found liberation around the body shame, I felt so good about that transition, but then I recognized I'm still carrying shame. I'm still letting aspects of my history define my worth, define my value. And that was the inner sign that told me I'm ready. I am ready to tell this part of my story, which is this part that I had kept really guarded. And it's not that I thought people would really necessarily care. It was more symbolic around the fact that if I felt I needed to hide it, it's because I was over identifying an aspect of my worth or my value with it. I was making meaning of the fact that these experiences had happened to me. And what did that say about me? As opposed to getting to that place of true wholeness, of recognizing that I am whole and I am worthy regardless. Like I really knew that I was whole and worthy and had value regardless of my weight, regardless of the size of my clothes. And yet I hadn't applied that same truth to I am whole and worthy regardless of the fact that I spent time hospitalized, regardless of the fact that I made some massive parenting mistakes or relationship mistakes. So, and I recognize that until we can have liberation in all the areas of our life, we
mm.
don't really have full liberation. So, very recently, the reason I'm telling this story is because I want to have all of us be able to recognize our wholeness and our worthiness in this no matter what kind of way. No matter what we do, no matter what has been done to us, no matter what accomplishments we have, or no matter what tragedies, traumas, or mistakes we've made, nothing can touch our wholeness and our worthiness. It's our birthright. We didn't create it. It's always been with us and it always will be with us in that no matter what kind of way.
Ooh, there is so much to take from that. I remember reading that and thinking, "Oh my gosh, like, this is my friend," and reading your story, and my first thought was, I would in a second wanna come to you for psychotherapy because I just automatically trusted you so much knowing that
Mm.
you had gone through that journey, and I think of how much we hide, and yet that's actually what builds connection and trust with others because we all have even if we don't have your exact story, I mean, I know I can relate to a lot of it.
Yeah,
You
maybe I'll just say something about that if I can.
Yeah, please do.
There's such a difference, and maybe you can relate to this. There's such a difference between something that we know is true
Mhm,
versus something feeling true. So
mhm.
we can know something is true theoretically and
Yeah,
it not feel true. And
right.
theoretically, I know, and I have always known that having a mental health condition does not impact your value or your worth at all.
Yes.
I I deplore the mental health stigma that's out there. I see the way it hurts clients that I work with and see the way it hurts all of us. And even though I theoretically know that and would preach on that,
Yeah.
I didn't I couldn't feel that because I was under the weight of the mental health stigma. I was afraid of what
Mhm.
people would think of me or whether or not people would assume that I didn't have my own stuff together enough to be able to help them. So it's like consciously I knew it didn't make sense, but
Yeah.
still I was plagued by this shame. And that's really how I think shame works is that it gets us at this unconscious feeling that, we wouldn't even agree with our own shame story if we have to think of
Yeah.
it or argue it consciously, but it still lives within us. It's like an entity that has its own life in a way.
Yeah, that's such a good point about feeling it and knowing it because I can Yeah, I can think of so many situations or even, when someone's saying, I know this," they're not feeling what they're saying, and
Right.
you feel that there's like a disconnect there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can feel it in others, you can feel it in yourself as well.
Yeah.
Um,
And moving to that place of embodied knowing is when,
yeah.
like, I know it theoretically, but I feel it and it all lines up. It's an embodied knowing. And I think that's what I was missing. I had that embodied knowing
Yeah.
about my physical body and about what had happened in my deeper cravings journey. But I did not have that embodied knowing about what went down in my marriage or about what
Mhm.
happened with my mental health. I
Mm.
didn't have that like deep trust that no matter what happened in my history, it didn't diminish who I was or what I could offer.
Yeah, and I love that because you're taking so many different aspects of who we are, and so often we go or we search for help in one area only, and we're like, "Okay, this area is fixed now. Now maybe I can move over to this area." We don't always look at ourselves as a whole. We look at ourselves
Mhm.
in compartments.
Mhm. Yeah, and something I do when I work with clients, I when I began that deeper cravings journey, what really pulled me toward that transformation was the practice of presence.
Mm.
Was I developed a program for myself of deep presence. I studied mindfulness, I studied aspects of Buddhism. I wanted to learn how to really show up in a present way. And mostly because when I had been working prior in senior leadership positions, and in that kind of a desk job with a busy schedule and staff under me, all of that, I could see how not present I was. How often I'd be talking to somebody but have a million other things going on in my mind. And, I was always a step ahead. And I knew that there was going to be something essential to finding my peace and finding my wholeness again through getting really present. And so I went on this experience of trying to learn how to find how to find that connection to self through presence. And what I realized, and I found this early in life too, you and I, when we think about our history together, I was a very early spiritual seeker. I came to my sense of spirituality at the age of
Yeah.
16. And in those moments when I was out in nature, really feeling connection to, fill in the blank, I might call it God, source, spirit, soul, universe, whatever word works for people. In those split second moments, I felt whole. That was wholeness.
Yeah.
Then in practicing mindfulness, I'd recognize, wow, in a split second, I can feel whole again. The problem is, and so when I'm offering mindfulness with clients, I do these little mini meditations before a session. And what I say to them is, if you can push pause on your mind, you recognize that you have a mind, you use a mind, but you are not your mind. You are not your thoughts. You are something else. You are the one that's having the thoughts, that's using the mind. And when we can connect to that something else that we are, there's so much opportunity for wholeness. As you say, like we compartmentalize, oh, this is my issue with my body, this is my relationship, this is what's going on in my thoughts. But we also can over identify with those parts of us, which takes us further away from the truth of who we are. And what I would say is the truth of who we are is that light at the core. That's that, again, soul, spirit, essence, higher self, consciousness that has a body, that uses a body, that has a mind, that uses a mind, that has relationships, but it's not who we actually are.
Yeah, I love that you talked about that word in particular, the over-identifying, because that's what I see a lot, especially with, women. We talked about this earlier, and we'll get into it a little bit later with the weight loss and my struggle around that whole
Mhm.
just the way it's spoken about in today's world. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to lose weight, but it's like the place that that's coming from. But I get so much over identifying with, I'm perimenopausal, or
Mhm.
I've got this autoimmune, or, I did it for a long time. I suffered with mold toxicity. And I just remember the language I started using around that all the time. And I'm like, I am not mold. like, but
Mhm.
I see this in so many people. And then you hold on to these titles
Mhm.
tightly in whatever area of your life. I am divorced, I am married, I am whatever it is. And so I love that you're talking about that because that's not you. And I don't think that until you let go of that, that you can truly find like who you are at your source.
So true. And that to me is the shedding of shame because we have our conscious I ams, all the ones you're saying. I
Mhm.
am divorced. I am a teacher. I am all the conscious I ams that we would tell somebody else if we were narrating the story of our life. I am
Yes.
this, I am that, I am that. But the other thing that all of us have, and it can be incredibly harmful to us, is we have our unconscious I
Mm.
ams. The unconscious I ams are formed often when we're really young. We collect evidence about who and what we are. So from the time we're really little, and often it's like before the age of 7, things happen in our life that has us as little ones collecting evidence about our I am statement.
Mhm.
And that can be things like I am broken. I am unlovable. I am
Mhm.
not smart. I am not enough, or I'm too much. And we create these stories that we desperately don't want to think are true. We don't want to know they're true, but they live on in us as wounds. I think of them like core wounds. For me, from the time I was very little, I know now, I've uncovered it, one of my core wounds is I'm a disappointment. So
Mm.
even though consciously as an adult, if somebody said, Peggy, do you think you're a disappointment? I'd say, oh no. And I'd point to all kinds of evidence that would say that I'm not. Meanwhile, I had that I am story. I was over identified with this idea that I was a disappointment, which meant that I became a really high achiever and I wanted to accomplish things because I was always running away from that very scary proposition. I am a disappointment. But then meanwhile, if something would happen in my life where I would experience disappointment in somebody else, it would it would amplify that wound. And that's where I'd have a big overreaction. And that tends to be where our overreactions in life come from, is
Yeah.
when our life shows us evidence of the unconscious I am that we've been
Ooh,
hanging
I'm
on to.
loving this. Yeah.
So when our life shows us evidence of that, like let's say you have the I am not enough, right? And a
Mhm.
lot of us have that one.
Yeah.
So I am not enough, and that's lodged within us. And we go through life thinking we are enough and proving we are enough and perfectionism and striving and all the things. But then something happens. Maybe somebody rejects us or breaks up with us. Boom, there's the evidence. I'm not enough. And that's when we have our great big reactions. So fettering out somewhere, what is my I am stories? What are the I am stories I'm over identifying with in my conscious mind? And what are my unconscious I am stories that I'm carrying myself about myself that aren't true? None of them are true. And
Mm.
shame is born from the carrying an untrue I am statement.
Ooh, I love this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shame is usually general. Shame is I am bad. I am broken. We've identified with these conditions. The truth of it is we are whole. We are worthy. We are light. And that's all that we are. We can do bad.
Yeah.
Things can break. Relationships can break, but it's not the I am. We
Right.
don't characterize ourselves or over identify with that.
Oh, I love that. It's funny as you were saying that, I was thinking of like, what's mine? But I actually know mine because I've gotten braver at sharing it probably in the last few years and mine for a long time. Because when I went through my divorce, I really took a long time before I started dating again and wanted to really, not just grieve it, but also grow from it.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, where did this stem from? Because I ended up in a marriage that it probably never should have happened. And you'll never hear me say anything really bad about my ex. He was a lovely guy.
Yeah.
Oh, we all have our things. But
Yeah.
my story was always I am not smart.
Mm,
And so my former husband was Oxford educated,
mm,
Westminster Abbey School, like, beyond, like, next level smart, knew something
mm,
about everything, was just so clever, and I remember just admiring that so much in him, and I remember thinking, "How can this guy like me? Like, he's just so smart," you know? Like,
mm.
I looked at that and I thought, "Wow, that's where did I learn that I'm not smart? Like, that's ridiculous,"
Right.
and now I was, like, overcompensating, like, nothing else mattered, it was just that he
Mhm.
was smart, that was,
Yes.
like, enough.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, and why those I am stories, you carrying obviously that's so untrue, and all your listeners who listen to you all the time, that couldn't be anything further from the truth, and you can have all kinds of evidence and all kinds of people can say, "How could you possibly, Rosa, believe that
Yeah,
you're not smart?"
yeah,
But it doesn't matter. Once that gets lodged in us, until we have an
yeah,
actual process for looking at it, excavating it, and replacing it with something that is true, it lurks there and they come back to haunt us. And those core wounds, they live on in us. And really my proposition around it, and I'll work with clients and they'll be like, when am I going to be done? When am I going to be done overreacting to somebody who might
Yeah,
trigger my
good
core
question.
wound? And I have bad news for them in a way,
Mm,
because my viewpoint on it is healing, and the work of trauma healing is often about uncovering what's your I am untruth that you're hanging on to, so that you can become conscious to it. When you're conscious to it, you can recognize when it gets activated, you can replace it with what's true, the true
yeah,
story, and your reactions become less frequent. They last for you're triggered for shorter amounts of time, and then you can live in your life more skillfully. But do I ever think they're fully gone? I don't know about that. I feel like the work is not about getting, because that, to me, that then it just becomes another form of perfectionism. I just want to
yeah.
live in this perfect way as somebody who never gets triggered and never and isn't wounded. And
Mhm.
so I don't know if they're fully gone, but what happens is we become aware of them so that we can tell ourselves the truth about who we are and what we are.
Yeah, and I feel like, having them there, but just a lot smaller, like
Yeah,
tiny,
shrink them
still
down.
is it builds character, like, there's something beautiful, like, if we're all I mean, like you said, it's this idea of perfectionism, which I always preach. I just do not believe in perfection. You do not need to be
Right.
perfect to achieve anything that you are looking forward to achieving. But it's like how boring if we were all
Yeah.
perfect. Like what
Yeah.
an actually gross
Yeah.
world if we were
Yeah.
all like what does that even mean, right?
Huh,
So
yeah.
I think that I love that. And you know what? I feel like already in us talking is anyone listening even to look within and
Mhm,
identify what that statement is. If this is
mhm,
something someone has never even really considered, like, what a huge gift already just to be conscious to that. I'll never
mhm.
forget when I became conscious to that, and I don't remember why, but,
Yeah.
you and I, again, we've known each other forever, and at such a
Mhm.
young age too, I was, doing gratitude practice actually because of Oprah.
Yeah, of course. Ahead of
When
your
it
time.
was like when I was 25 and it profoundly changed, like, I just saw these little miracles everywhere, and, we've got friends in common that I met at university as well, and we're all kind of had that, right? And
Mhm.
so I think we were always super aware, but I don't remember when I became conscious of that was my I am statement. It was after my divorce, but I remember thinking, "Oh, okay." It was almost like a relief, like, there
Yeah.
it is, because I was so long trying to figure out what was wrong with me, why did this work, like, what was the truth of this story, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, okay, cool." Like, now I
Yeah,
can move
it's really
forward.
powerful.
You
Yeah,
can't
it's
replace it
powerful
until
to
you know it.
know. Absolutely. That's it, Rosa. Awareness is the first step. We have to be aware. What are these untrue things we're telling ourselves about ourselves? And where did they come from? And so that when we get activated in a moment now, like when we get into, we hear that concept of a shame spiral. You heard
Yeah,
that concept? That's the idea, like
yeah.
something happened. We're mad at ourselves that it happened. We said the wrong thing. We did the
Mhm.
wrong thing. And now we can't let go of it. We're ruminating. We're thinking about it. We're maybe, writing that apology email and then rewriting it and trying to get it perfect. And we're
Yeah,
wrapped up. We are wrapped up in a shame spiral. And that happens to us. It happens to all of us. We all get like hooked in that way.
yeah.
But if we can look at, what am I getting hooked around? What am I working so hard to prove wrong? And it's that I am statement,
Yeah,
right? So then we find out, oh, I'm working so hard because I told myself that I'm not enough. And now life has just proven that to me. And now I better really work very hard at disproving that. We can
right.
recognize, oh, I don't need to disprove that, because the truth is, I am whole, I am worthy, I am light, I am enough regardless. And I say, tack on that word regardless. So that's
Oh, I
when you
like that.
say, this thing happened. Yes,
Yeah,
this thing happened. Yes, it was bad. Maybe I did say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, but it doesn't define me. It can't create the I am. So even though it happened, I am whole, I am worthy, I am enough, regardless. So you
yeah,
hold them both side by side. Like, this thing can happen, but it doesn't need to mean anything about who I am or what I am.
yeah. Yeah, amazing. Let's back up just a tiny bit because
Yeah.
we move fast. But
Yes.
just, like,
Yes.
let's just, for someone who hasn't even really been aware of shame,
Yeah.
let's just define it. Like, how do you define it? And then you also talk a bit about softening shame, and I like that
Yeah.
because that it goes back to like that perfectionism talk. But like, let's just
Yeah.
touch a little bit on that.
Well, so first of all, I'd say that shame is a human emotion that we all encounter. In my mind, it is the most useless and harmful of all the human
Mm,
emotions because shame is the experience I am. I am, we talked about that. I am bad, or fill in your blank of whatever word you associate with bad. I'm not enough. I'm not smart. All those. It's the I am. That's what shame is.
okay, cool.
Guilt is something different, and it's a very useful emotion, especially if it's,
I always say guilt is not useful. Oh, I
oh,
like
okay. Well,
this. Oh, I like it
we
when
can debate it.
someone expands me.
Well, I'll tell you how I see
I've
guilt.
said that forever. Yeah,
I'll see how
yeah.
I see
Tell
guilt.
me.
And because they get intertwined. So say you do something. So say you overreact in a moment. Maybe you say something to somebody that you regret saying, you overreacted. And then you're caught up in that what I would call a shame spiral. That's because you're not feeling guilty about it. You might say you're feeling guilty, but actually you're feeling shame because you're feeling the I am. Because that thing happened, because you overreacted in a moment, because you said something you regretted. Now, oh no, that proves my I am statement. I am bad. I'm a mess. I'm too much, whatever it is. Guilt, when we can deflect shame, when we know the truth of who we are, when we know we're whole, when we know we're worthy, when we know we are good regardless,
Yeah.
then we can sit in guilt, which is I am good, I am whole, and I did wrong. I did
Okay.
something bad. I did something out of alignment with my own values. So I may have spoke to somebody in a way I wouldn't wish to.
Oh,
So
okay.
guilt then becomes a compass that can align us back to the truth of who we are and how we want to live in accordance with our values. So guilt becomes very useful because if it's healthy guilt, that means we see, oh, I did something, I took an action that's out of alignment with who I want to be in the world or how I want to handle things.
Mhm.
When we have healthy guilt and it's not mixed in with shame, apologies become really easy to do.
Mhm.
So if you know somebody in your life who can't apologize, never apologizes,
Yes.
there is a really good chance that the reason they don't apologize is because they've got that shame and guilt wires crossed. That
Ooh.
if they've done something that you're trying to hold them accountable for and they can't apologize for it, it's because unconsciously they're experiencing shame. They're
Whoa.
experiencing, "Oh, no, my partner is mad at me." They know and see that deep down, I am bad. I am a bad guy. And so because they're experiencing that shame, they can't sit in the story that, "Oh, yeah, I'm a good guy, but I did a bad thing and I hurt you." When we don't mix the wires, when we know that we're good and we're whole, and we've really got that at our core, then it becomes very easy to offer an apology because we go, oh, yeah, I did something hurtful. I did something out of alignment with my values. I said something that I wish I hadn't said. So, guilt can be extremely useful because it aligns us and back to who we want to be in the world. And we have a chance to then make amends and correct our behavior and heal relationships where we've wounded people.
Wow, this is actually mind-blowing. Now I'm thinking to myself, "Did I just mix those 2 words?" Like, now I'm gonna have to listen to this back and have some thought because I'm interviewing.
Yes,
Like
yeah, other things. Well, but the other thing I'll say, Rosa, is there's another kind of guilt that's not useful, and that's
Mhm.
undeserved guilt. And that can be where you feel guilty about something that really wasn't your fault and you didn't take an action, and it doesn't really
Mhm.
make sense that you feel guilty. And then guilt can just become like a knee-jerk response that says,
Right.
no, say you didn't know something, but you took an action without that information, and then you realize, oh no, because I took an action, something got harmed. And now you're
Right.
plagued with guilt. Well, that's
Right.
undeserved guilt because you couldn't
Right.
have done any better. You weren't acting out of your values. You didn't know. So there, I'd say slide. So what I often say to my clients is slide the emotion over. So when you have shame show up, see if it's actually guilt and then slide it over to guilt. Get out of the realm of I did bad, slide it
Mhm.
over, or get out of the realm of I am bad, slide
Yeah.
it over to recognize I did bad.
Right.
When it's the second kind, this undeserved guilt, then I say, see if you can soften that and instead of feeling guilt about something that where somebody was harmed or where something didn't go well, see if you can slide that over to sad. So instead
Mm,
of saying, I feel guilt about that thing, say instead, I feel sad about that
mm.
because there's a loss in it. The fact that I didn't know something I wish I knew and I behaved one way because I didn't know, I'm sad because there's a missed opportunity.
Right.
But with that sadness, you can honor there was a loss without taking on culpability.
I love that. He reminded me of someone recently told me about a book called A Book of Emotions. It's identifying emotions. And I think
Okay.
sometimes we just don't have the language. Like I love that you said, like, shift it over to sad. Oh, I wouldn't have even thought of that. Maybe it was sad that I was feeling, and identifying that is really helpful.
Yeah, it's huge. That's a huge. Often we don't have a lot of language for the
Mhm.
whole range of emotions. And what I recommend for people doing, I tell this a lot to my clients, is if you go on Google and Google a feelings chart, you'll get these
Mhm.
PDFs that have, 50 to
Yeah, I've
100
seen them.
words. Have you seen these
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
And all the words are for different emotions and they're all in like big categories. So here's the category under fear. You might
Okay.
have terrified and timid and anxious and worried. You get all of these nuanced
Yeah.
emotions. Thing is, when you're having an event, like say you're having a relationship event or something's just happened at work and you're home and you're feeling that bit of ick, you don't feel okay, you
Mhm.
might tell yourself sort of a broad thing like, oh, I'm mad. But now,
Mhm.
if you go to your feelings chart, you're going to be able to pinpoint with real precision the kind of mad that you are. You'll be able to point to
Yeah.
one of those words. You'll go through the list and you'll go, nope, 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 yep. And you'll find that exact word. And the more broadly you can know the emotion language, the more you can pinpoint what are you actually feeling. You are so much better resource to be able to help yourself with that feeling. Because you can ask yourself the question like, does my feeling match the facts of the situation? And then does my feeling match does the severity of my feeling, does the degree of this feeling match the
Yeah.
facts of the situation?
Yeah, it keeps coming back to really knowing ourselves and that presence too, to be
Yeah.
able to and then to identify your emotion. This is amazing. Peggy, there's not a lot of podcasts where, like, I'm half thinking and then half remembering what I'm doing.
Oh.
But you're so captivating. You always
I'm zigzagging us through lots of different
Yeah.
topics all over the
Yeah.
place.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it. Let's take it to body because you and I had a really
Yeah.
great conversation before we hit record, and I was like, "We should have recorded that."
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. When I was reading one of your Substacks, you described in your writing that the body is a sacred vessel, not
Mhm.
a project to fix.
Mhm.
And I loved that because I speak of that always, like so often. Like, you do not need to hate where you are in order to still desire whatever it is, like more energy, more strength, more weight loss. Like, I love giving women the tools to achieve those things, but it has to, I believe, come from a place of feeling good where you are right now. And I believe that that's truly possible. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in a way, it comes back to this word regardless again. It comes back to that unconditional embrace of this home that we've been given. I've once heard the body referred to as our earth suits.
Mhm.
You've heard that expression, I'm sure. We're not human beings, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. That idea that we're here, as spirit, as soul, and we get these earth suits that we wear. These are our bodies that
Mhm.
take us through life. And when we think of what our body allows us to do, when we can sit in that gratitude, like back to your gratitude practice for what the body allows us to do, like absolutely everything you love in life, you
Mhm.
only access through your body. Every time you see a sunset and you get wowed by that, that is your body getting you there. The touch of your little one's hand when you're holding hands with your little girl or your little boy, that's your body. The incredible taste of chocolate or strawberry, that's your
Mhm.
body. And when you can anchor into the function of your body instead of getting so hung up on the form of your body, its shape and its size. And listen, we're in a culture that tells us we'd better be doing the body project. We better be completing, perfecting, toning, improving at all times the
Yeah.
body. We get that message from everywhere. And this ties directly to the shame piece. We feel like if we're not, if we haven't perfected, if we're not working on the body project, then we are not enough somehow, or we're not succeeding
Yeah.
in life. And this isn't about abandoning the body. It's the opposite, Rosa. It's about embracing the body fully no matter what. But when you embrace something and you truly love it, you're so much more motivated to take care of it from an intrinsic place.
Yeah. I
Saying,
love.
I love this thing. Like if you think of your prized possessions, or you think of, I often will say to people, like, think of how you feel about caring for your children or your pets or your prized possessions. Because you love them so much, you are
Mhm.
so much more motivated to know what they need, give them what they need, take care of them, treat them well, which, by the way, isn't just, what you eat or how you move. It's really how you talk to your body,
Yeah.
how you talk about your body, how you talk about your body in front of other people. What messages is your body absorbing? And so often we are really cruel, actually, to our
Mhm.
body. We say very cruel and hurtful things to and about our body all the time. So if you can move towards seeing your body as a sacred vessel, really recognizing, wow, this is my earth suit. I've been entrusted with this. It allows me to access everything. Then you can befriend the body and form a relationship with your body that's based in reverence. Once it's based in reverence, you're going to be so much more motivated to listen to it, to respond to it. So if it's telling you these kinds of foods don't work for you, you're so much more motivated to want to respond to that than if
Mhm.
you're under the impression that you're, like, for so many years, Rosa, my body was my enemy. My
Mhm.
body was like the scapegoat.
Yeah.
Everything that I didn't get in life that I thought I wanted, I just blamed that on the size of my body. And the size of my body was up and down and all over the scale all those years, up and down, depending on what diet I was doing. And it became this like constant project and constant nemesis. And the irony is, I was in it, I couldn't escape it. But I was always in the obsession of feeling like it was preventing me from my dreams. And if only I could get to the perfected body, then I could have the life of my dreams. I was so cut off from like true embrace and relationship with the body. And that was what I recognized, was that our cultural messages about our body and my own personal history of trauma, and my own personal history with diet culture had disenfranchised me from my very home. Like, my body is my home on this planet.
Yeah.
So that's what I meant by this is our sacred vessel, not a project.
No, and I absolutely love that. And you know how we were talking about like different areas of your life or the areas that we work on. And for
Yeah.
me with my body, I think I was just very blessed with a mother that just never really put any emphasis on it. She always talked about eating well, eating healthy, don't save money on food. You need to eat like it was always like
Yeah.
we didn't have a lot of money, but make sure you eat. Like so it was very positive.
Yeah.
So when I started this work, it was because my aunt who you had met
Yes.
and our journey together when she had cancer and then all of a sudden I wanted to save the world and
Mhm.
help people to get healthy and within that then I became really passionate about helping women in particular to be healthy so that we could, at best try and avoid many of these chronic diseases. There's
Mhm.
no guarantees but then I encountered this world where I couldn't believe how my clients were speaking to themselves, and I just used
Mhm.
to say, "You would never speak to me that way. You would never speak to your
Mhm.
friends that way. Why are you speaking to yourself that way?" And so that was surprising to me, and I would say even more recently as women, we share and talk a lot. What's come up is that not only is it diet culture and the way we speak to ourselves, but many women have also had relationships, and this has come up a lot with mothers who spoke poorly to them, actually just abusively to them when it came to their bodies, and
Mhm.
it's been quite a few women that have said this. "My mother used to call me this. My mother used to say this." It's just blown me away.
Yeah, Rosa, one of the first activities that I do when I'm working in the Deeper Cravings path with women about coming home to their body is I have them do a timeline where they go from the time they were born to whatever the age they are now and
Mhm.
plot on this timeline all the significant events, positive and negative, that they think have shaped their relationship with their body. And when they do that as almost a meditation, like sit in a space where you've got like a couple of hours of time, and I say, get crayons, get markers, make it colorful, connect with what are those flashes of memory that come up that you think helped form or, yeah, formed your relationship with your body. So often it's not these big events that we could all point to as traumas. It's these very subtle moments. I remember
Mm,
sitting at the dinner table and grandma giving me a look and saying this one shaming thing. Or I
mhm.
remember being with my mom in the car and this and that happening. So there are these really pivotal moments. And for a lot of women that I work with, it's between the ages of 10 and 12. But I
Mhm.
unfortunately think that's skewing younger. I look
Right.
at my daughter and, her friends and people I hear about stories much, much younger where little girls are, on a school bus when they're in first grade and they're comparing this part of their body to that part of the body. And it happens to us so young that we get disconnected. And something that I ask people to think about is know that that wasn't always the case. Like for me, my
Mhm.
first diet was at the age of 8. So I lost connection to my home base, my body, really, really, really young. I've resented my body for years. But what
Yeah.
I realized was that wasn't always the case. If you go from the moment you were born to being a
Mhm.
toddler to being a preschooler, there was a time when you were completely at home and
Mhm.
100% aligned and alive and felt
Beautiful.
wonderful in your body. And you can skew back to whenever that was. Because when there was a marker when it started where people lost connection with their body and lost trust in their body and got resentful of their body. But you can remember that that's not your natural position and it's not how it started for you. So
Yeah.
since there was a time when you were completely at home, you can reclaim that. You can get completely at home again in your body.
Yeah.
And maybe just one more thing I'd say about like the motivation toward health. What I would say about that is when we love something, like I said, we really want it to feel great. And you
Mm.
know how great you feel after an
Yeah.
amazing workout or after what you do with
Mhm.
the women in your program, or after you eat something that helps you to feel really alive versus eating
Mhm.
something that has you feeling kind of gross or heavy. Like we know
Mhm.
how great it feels. But I
Yeah.
would check again, back to that conversation about emotions. Check what emotion is motivating your health behaviors. If
Mm.
you're being motivated by shame, in other
Mhm.
words, I am bad unless I'm thin, or I am not enough unless I'm this or that, then shame is what's motivating you. That is not going to serve you. It's also never going to
Yeah.
sustain those health behaviors. I would also say
Yes.
if you're motivated by fear, I am doing this because I'm worried that I won't get a promotion or I won't get a boyfriend or I'll get a big
Mhm.
disease. Typically in life, we actually don't do our best work and we don't have sustained change when we're motivated by fear. So check those motivations that are around fear and shame. And
Mhm.
again, see if you can slide that over to love. If you're motivated by love, as in, I love this body and I love this life and I want to feel vibrant and alive and I want to get the most out of every moment that I'm intrinsically motivated by love, that is so much more likely to result in a sustained behavior change than if you're
Yeah.
trying to be motivated by the other two.
Yeah, I love that. That's completely in alignment with who I am, what I teach, what I love that so much, and I wish we would hear that message even more because the message is that fear is a great motivator and, I guess everything
Yeah.
has its place, but I think in this case in particular, it's why I've never been one of those trainers that makes someone feel bad or guilty. It's always around being gentle and being positive, and I just don't believe that being harsh on someone is the way to move them forward. It's just more shame. It's just
Yeah, yeah,
not.
yeah. And we're all swimming in shame. And
But we see that the whole
yeah.
fitness world sometimes is like that, right? The yelling at you,
Mhm,
it's just like, ugh. But
mhm,
anyways, that is just the most beautiful message. So thank you so much for
mhm,
speaking that.
mhm,
Okay, I'm aware of the time, so now I'm gonna have
mhm,
to rush you, and everyone's
mhm,
gonna be I could tell they're like, "Oh, what? What?
mhm,
It's almost over?" Yes, because I need to respect
mhm.
Peggy's time, and we will have you back for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question that I ask everyone. I'd love for you to answer this. And then I want you to share how women could get in touch with you and what your offering is, if it's something that speaks to someone that's listening. If they're like, okay, I really need to do some work around this, what can I do? So the question is always, I ask everyone this: what is something that you've heard or read that changed everything for you? Like one of those moments. At this age, we have probably quite a few, but
Well, I had the heads up. I knew you'd be asking this
yes.
question, and I loved it. I was so excited that you asked
Oh,
this question because this is something that I read that is really full circle for me right now. So it dovetails perfectly in how people can get in touch with me or what I'm doing right now.
perfect.
So, as I mentioned, I had a big, big spiritual experience. I would call it a mystical experience when I was 16 in nature, in the forest. I had a moment of true knowing, embodied knowing, like we talked about embodied knowing, true knowing that I was loved, I was enough, and I wasn't alone. And that was the formation of my spirituality. But I couldn't sustain that knowing. I knew it in that moment, and I've touched into it many times, but then my early programming, my early traumas, those wounds that we talked about would crop up all the time, and I couldn't sustain that deep connection. When I was 17, I read in a book called Return to Love, where the author talked about how Michelangelo did not create those statues, the Pieta, the David. Michelangelo would say all he did was remove the excess rock. And what the author goes
Mm,
on to say is it's the same with us. We don't need to work to become the perfect us. We think
yeah.
we do. We think we need to perfect and improve and perform. But what this author said, and I read it when I was 17 and it resonated at 17, is the perfect us was there from the beginning. It's always been there. It will always be there. No matter what happens to us, no matter what we do, we can't add to it and we can't detract from it. And that truth, it pierced something in me that I've never forgotten. It feels like such a deep truth. That's what pulls me back to this work, and that's where my story of all those shame stories that I've carried were out of alignment with that truth, that deep knowing that I don't need to do a damn thing to be worthy or whole. I already am. The statue is there within the rock. But the excess that I need to chip away at and rid myself of are these untrue beliefs that have
Mm,
formed through a lot of life experience that I need to uncover. But the way that I over time, just to say something about that is for a long time I'm like, okay, I'm chipping away. How am I going to chip away? I want to get at that perfect statue.
yeah.
But what I realized over time is it's less about like rock that you can chip away at. It's more
Yeah.
like a coat that you put on that covers the light,
Yeah.
but that you also can take off. And then it comes back on and it's a heavy weight and it hides our light, but we can take off that coat too.
Beautiful.
And what I've recognized, and this ties into what I'm doing, is there are certain practices, certain people, certain environments that make it so much easier for me to connect with my light. For
Mhm.
me, I know that as much as I believe I am a good therapist, I do great work in therapy, and I've had great therapists in my life. I know that the most therapeutic thing for me, those game changing moments in my life, those deep transformations have not happened inside a therapy room. And I'm a
Mhm.
therapist saying that. So
Yeah.
my colleagues might not like that I'm saying that right now. But where they have happened reliably is when I am held by a community of like minded people where we can be very real and where I can have time to be in silence, often be in nature, and get back to the truth and have the quieting of my mind, a chance to really connect with my wholeness. That's when that like all that marble just kind of falls to the ground and the coat falls off. So yeah, so the work that I'm really excited about that I'm doing right now, and the work where people can find me, if that's the next question, is I'm forming I have a community called the Nourish community where it's for women and women and people who identify as women, and I offer a community space where we can meet online, but also in person retreats and
Mhm.
also meditations and a way to come together and connect about these beautiful but these messy aspects of living that we touch on all aspects of life, our relationship with our bodies, mental health using, best practices out of modern mental health, but also relationships and how do we have thriving relationships? And ultimately, how do we get back to the truth of who we are and find and connect with that light within?
Beautiful. Oh my goodness. That was so beautiful. And I can't wait to go back and listen to all of it again.
Uh,
What is your I'll put it in the show notes, of course, but
yeah.
what is your Instagram handle? Because I think
Deeper
nowadays that's the
Cravings.
best way. So
Yeah.
Deeper Cravings
Deeper
is
Cravings. Yeah.
oh,
Instagram. Yeah. Yeah.
perfect.
And then you can also find deepercravings.com, Deeper Cravings on Substack. You'll find me under Deeper Cravings, and the body of work is Nourish right now that I'm offering.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, Peggy, thank you
Oh,
so
it
much.
was
Thanks for your
so
wisdom. Thanks for
fun.
your
Yeah.
time,
Well,
for
it's
everything.
great to see you and connect with
So
you
lovely
again,
to see
Rosa.
you.
And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to
Uh,
talk with you and everyone else. And I loved
absolutely.
it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening in today. I know time is precious and I'm grateful you shared yours with me. It would mean the world to me if you felt an impact, a moment of inspiration, or learned something new. If you would share it with those you care about and leave me a review on iTunes. I'd love to know what spoke to you or what you'd like to hear more of. Your sharing and leaving a review would help so much on this journey to making an impact on as many people as possible. It's worth it. I know from experience, there are moments when something we hear has the possibility of changing everything.